Welcome to the show. I am extremely excited to have special guest Scott Ferguson on the show. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wick, how are you, brother?
I am doing
Blessed to
fantastic.
be here, man. Awesome.
Yeah, when I see a invite and a schedule where you're on it, I'm like, man, this is going to be high energy. We're going to bounce back and forth. It's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
amazing episode. So let's dive right into your hidden edge. I think
Mhm.
it's so vital in life. Why don't you share it, and then how'd you kind of discover it and build it over time?
Yeah, man. I was born in 72. And I was born in the Philippine Islands. My mother was Filipino, my father was American. It was just kind of like a hookup. And my father bailed to Vietnam. My biological father bailed to Vietnam, just kind of left my mom there. And the government was really like zoned in on women that were pregnant. If they had a male bastard child, they were literally taking the child from the mother and sending them to Spain
Wow.
because one, I'm 6'1", 245, pretty well put together. And if you had even smaller than me, we were bigger than the average Filipino man. So at the time, they were worried about a physical takeover of the country. So they're really
Okay.
getting rid of them. And luckily, I had an Air Force couple that wanted to adopt a child. They had two of their own. They wanted to adopt a third, and they ended up starting the adoption process. And the mother who was going to adopt me, her father got sick in California. So they got me a temporary passport, went to California with them. Her father dies, and she went schizophrenic.
Oh,
So I ended up kind of being at an orphanage for a while until I got adopted by who I call my mother and father. And they were great people. My mother passed a few years ago. My father and I are, were best friends, but he was a Vietnam vet himself,
mhm.
was a big drinker, couldn't really raise me the right way. So they kind of shipped me off to different places. So I had all this abandonment kind of going on throughout all my early life. Fast forward a few years, got pretty good at sports, and I found kind of a home with community there. But then I still was kind of bouncing from house to house, right? So
Okay.
when I graduated high school, I had all looks from schools for certain sports, but they didn't like my 1.8 grade point average. So I
Okay.
ended up kind of going in the military, which was the best thing that really could have ever happened. I really found a real family to me there. Not to put anything bad about my parents or any of that other jazz, but it was a family that I have. But I always wanted to learn, and I always was born with this curiosity bone in my body because because of the abandonment stuff. I wanted to learn. And but then I learned, and then I made a bunch of money printing money, doing things after the military, and I got really arrogant. And
Okay.
so I believe in God, and God said, we're going to humble you in 2009 and crash the market, and you're going to lose everything. And from there, I really just reset. I was a real estate broker, living in a house that the people moved to Florida out of Michigan, and they said, "Oh yeah, just take care of our house, sell it for us." And I ended up squatting there with my dog because I had nowhere to go. I was such an idiot and a jerk to my family. I was afraid to ask them for any help. And I went to the library, and this guy's like, "I think you should read this book. It's called The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews." And that book really just shifted and brought back that curiosity. Basically, it's a book about a guy who loses everything. His daughter's sick. He thinks, I'm going to run my car into a tree. Bam, hits the tree. And he wakes up in 1945 and give him hell Harry Truman's office the day
Hmm.
before we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he really learns about taking responsibility and taking action. And then he meets Anne Frank for happiness, King Solomon for wisdom and stuff like that. And I just
Okay.
looked at that. I was like, wait, man, I have to build a tribe around this. And then in 2009, I started building, Time to Shine Today.
Okay.
I'm a micro influencer, man. I'm not big. You're not going to see me everywhere. But just it really started with just keeping that curiosity rolling, brother.
Okay. Lot to unpack there, right? So the abandonment piece.
Mm-hmm.
How one, what was that struggle like? And two, how did you how'd you get through it?
Well, the struggle sucked, man.
Yep.
It was, I would attach myself. Luckily, for some reason, I had an innate ability to gravitate to people that were trying to better themselves. So went to sports. I
Mhm.
could have been like back then we call them burnouts, where nothing against them, but sitting there smoking cigarettes and drinking and stuff at a young age, I gravitated towards sports, which really kept me focused.
Okay.
Something that was good for me, and that I felt lonely at times, but at the time, if I excelled, I would have these people accepting me. And so I got into the cool crowd, and, I didn't grow up on the wrong side of the tracks, but my father worked on the line at General Motors, and we
Okay.
were in a pretty affluential city outside of Detroit. So you had a lot of the white collar workers there. And a lot of their kids were the ones that excelled at sports and stuff like that. So I was kind of like an odd man out in a sense, but they always kind of, embraced me as long as I was good on the field.
Yeah. No, I was a terribly shy kid growing up in
Mm,
sports. Like I had the bowl haircut and
that
these
with you.
big glasses and sports gave me an avenue to, break in and
Yeah,
build friends and excel and then be accepted. It's amazing how
right.
that occurs in life. So, you go through, struggling with abandonment, finding the military, finding that discipline, that community. And I think this is, especially for men, so overlooked in
Mm,
our development as adults, as men, as leaders. Guys just aren't finding communities or brotherhoods or places that really cultivate growth and they kind of fall into these
mm.
l- kryptonite areas,
Yeah, different
vices, all those
tribes that
things.
don't serve
Yeah,
them,
that
right?
don't. So explain a little bit of your thoughts on that, and if you're stuck and you're somewhere you don't want to be. I mean, how do you kind of find your right tribe?
Yeah, and again, that all goes back to the curiosity.
Hmm.
With being, I just had this innate ability again to attract the people into my life, um, and be able to like really be able to sponge off of them. Because when you
Okay.
come from kind of an abandonment, anybody that pays attention to you, you sponge off of them. And
Hmm.
luckily, through God and through, the right decisions that I made, I was able to sponge off of people that were, basically standing on the shoulders of them to be able to see forward and create my vision for that. So it's something that I look back on, and I'm a big believer that a lot of people, you know they have a foot in the future or a foot in the past, and they piss all over the present, right?
Hmm.
And there's no vision for them. And I used to live in that rearview mirror, that little small rearview mirror in your car, looking at that past and kind of
Yep.
being stuck there, right? But again, because I surrounded myself with the right people, I was able to really pull myself forward, transform myself into, I feel, the ultimate human potential that I could be, and then now being able to do the same for others.
Yeah, and let's touch on that a little bit. So,
Hmm.
you're coaching. What do you do with others?
I basically I label myself as a lifestyle optimization artist, and then I
Okay.
say that because it's funny that it's just like a funny way of saying a life coach, but really, I really lean towards a mental conditioning coach. I'm
Okay.
not a consultant. I
Hmm.
get brought into minor league teams. I get brought into MMA fighters, whatnot, just to sit with them. And I believe that everybody has the problem within themselves,
Right.
right? But they also have the solution there. And my job as a coach is really game plan with them and help them find that solution. Because if I'm a consultant, I tell them what I think that they should do, and they go out and they perform shit or badly, right? Um, it's going to be like, Fergie, what are you trying to tell me? But if they come up with it, they're going
Hmm.
to do everything that they can to win
Yep.
for themselves, whether it's in life or whatnot. So really, man, I work on the mental side of things. We dig deep. I believe that everybody knows what they want. They just don't know how to talk themselves into it. And
Okay.
that's with my curiosity, I'm able to get them there.
Yeah, and the mental side, I mean, it's the difference maker in everything, right?
Huge.
I mean, it is. People aren't focused on it, but that is the difference. And I like how you framed up, not telling somebody, you're
Right.
almost guiding them to
Right.
the solution that they already have, and then once they've bought in,
Right.
it's them, not necessarily you.
Right.
So one thing I wanted to touch on that I pulled out from your backstory was, burning the bridges with your family and basically afraid to ask for
Mhm.
help.
Yeah.
And how were you? I faced that in my life, and it was a painful experience. I'd love to hear kind of what was going on and that journey for you, because I feel that, again, we see many times we've been programmed to think that asking for help is a weakness. Is actually
Sure.
it's a strength,
A
right?
huge,
So
yeah.
share that story with us, please.
My father, I didn't confide in him with anything, because I thought, oh, you worked on the line of Turner Motors, you're below me or whatnot. And, when my phone calls to him stopped, just to even chat about how awesome I am, he reached out to me and said, yo, Buck, what's up? Buckaroo is my nickname, Buck, what's going on? I
Yep.
told him. And he asked, what do I need? And, I said, I don't even know what I need, Pop, and so he sent me like $300. And with that, I bought a new set of tires for my 11-year-old car. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my dad reaching out to me is something, he was, my dad's a giant man, physically, very stoic, very quiet, very proud. And for him to do that, he broke the ice. I didn't.
Okay.
Right. He reached out to me because he saw me in pain. And he never put me down. He never said, oh, I told you so and stuff like that, because he'd always tell me, watch your money, or, rich people are bad, or, stuff like that, which, I don't agree with. But, he just, he was the one that reached out. So I owe it a lot to my father and my late mother as well. She reached out and said, Larry Scott, where have you been? And why haven't you called me? And I told my mom kind of the story. And the next day I got like $1,000 check in the mail from her. And that's when, I just realized that there are people out there, that really care about you. And it just happened to be my family.
Yep. No, I love going through that journey of, hey, not being able to ask for help. There are people that
Yeah.
will help you. I think inherently in the human DNA, we all have that helping bone in there, that helping gene where, yeah, if you're going through, yes, I'll help you any way I can. And so many times we're just, maybe it's pride, maybe it's ego, maybe it's, the view of asking for help, but
Right.
Can you help me out? And most people will say yes. And that's just, in the stage of life and the universe and the world we're in, a lot of people suffering in quiet isolation, depression.
Yeah.
Not knowing a way out.
Right.
There are people there. All you have to do is ask for help, and they will step up. So true. So let's get back to the mental side. I just want to dive in.
Yeah.
Are there, one or two examples of in your practice dealing with, if it's an MMA fighter or a minor league baseball player, can you give some scenarios of where maybe they had a mental block and you were able to kind of guide them to find the solution? Because I always love stories like that, because we all have mental blocks. You do,
Sure.
I do. We get through them. We battle. We're in the fight every single day.
Right.
So I'd love a couple stories.
When we start the conversation, I always kind of guide them with, we get to the root of what's going on. They might be in a slump. I have an all-star major leaguer that was in a slump, and really just, I haven't visualized what it feel like first if they stayed in the slump. What's it going to serve with them, right?
Yep.
How's that going to go? And then I know what I want to tell them because of the training that I had, but I will ask, very powerful questions of getting them back to the basics of where they were with, with your routine before the game, the routine during the game, the routine going into the batter's box, get them back to the absolute basics, and then into BP and carry that into the game. And I think that if you can do that with anybody and anything, doesn't have to be baseball, man. It could be a job at work, or your title at work, or a housewife or whatnot. You can get them back to the basics of why they're doing what they're doing. And then they've been coached to get to this level, period, and then, what did this coach tell you or whatnot? But I just have a way, and I get into a zone with them of my own little zone to really kind of, push them through. Also with the fighters out there that I'm blessed to coach, they'll take a loss, and they were the king of the cage for so long in their little pond. And then they step up to the big leagues and they might get starched. And with those guys, there's a lot of ego involved, but the bounce back and to be able to take them from where they are into neutral, right? And not thinking, okay, you don't know what's going to happen ahead of you. You know what's happened in the past. And if we can keep any athlete, again, housewife, office worker, if we can keep them in a neutral mindset versus trying to race somewhere, then they will succeed. So my whole goal in any coaching session, Wick, is really to get them into a neutral state of mind and then open them up. And then they just, if you, again, the foot in the future, foot in the past, and they piss off the present, that neutral is the present. And if we can start there, we can build on anything, bro.
And then neutral, just for the audience sake, is just, hey, what am I going to do right now? Right.
Right.
What action can you take?
Absolutely, man.
Right now. So a couple things that I gleaned from them that I wanted to dive on a little bit deeper. Back to the basics, back to the fundamentals.
Right.
Everybody, you know it. I know it. I love teaching my 14 and 12-year-old sons. Like we'll see Steph Curry, right? And what a tremendous basketball player.
Bro.
Dude, before the game, he's still shooting right in front of the baskets, working his way back.
Right.
He's doing those fundamentals. I always remember Peyton Manning, right? He would still go to Duke to his quarterback coach every summer and do the footwork and these fundamentals. And
every year, yeah.
So many times we get to a level and then we think we can go away from those fundamentals. And it's
man.
It's the base, it's the foundation for everything we do. So, back to the basics. Love that piece. Also love bouncing back, right? Because I think we have this just misconception that life is going to be perfect. It's going to be roses, everything's sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
If we can understand, like, we grow the most from difficulties, then you can bounce back and you can, like you said, get into neutral and focus on the present. Do you think people are more focused on the past or the future when you're working with them?
The past, they can feel disgraced a little bit, because of the failures they feel. The future can scare the hell out of them, so that's awesome for a coach. As you know, when you coach people, that's good to kind of know, because if you can keep them, in that neutral state of mind, I mean, the best way to stop falling deeper into holes is to stop digging, man. Right. Just stop digging, bro. And then also in that time of neutrality, I believe that you have this adversity that's sitting there, and it is the biggest opportunity for them to stress test themselves during that time. You know what I'm saying? See what you can take, see what you're really made of. Because that's when, you mentioned it earlier, that's when you really find out what you're made of, is when you're facing failures. I mean, Barry Sanders to me is the greatest running back of all time. I was blessed to know him. I actually personal trained his wife, Lauren, for a while. And, he would just say, dude, as long as I fall forward, I don't care how many yards I lose. It's like, as long as I fall forward and it's just fail forward, you hear that's cliche. The cliches are cliches because they work, bro. Right. So with that is saying no, and just not being afraid to fail, knowing that you're going to go up there and, you're actually doing what 1% of the people that breathe out air on this earth do, being blessed to be able to coach those guys. But then you have guys that, go into the office, they're not sure how to handle a subordinate or the person above them. Those are just as fun to dig into from a neutral mindset, because a lot of people want to bring the negative in, and a lot of people be like, oh, I'm all about affirmations. That's fine. I do affirmations as well. Don't get me wrong. But I also ask myself every single day, and I have my clients are required to ask themselves every single day very powerful questions, because as human beings, we are programmed to solve problems. That's how our brain is programmed. You can shove affirmations up your mind as much as you want, but are they really going to happen? But if you ask yourself, how can I make this happen today? How can I bat 300 this year? And then your mind will start to process that from a neutral standpoint, right? Not looking forward, not looking back. It's a present question. And from a neutral standpoint, the mind starts to go to work.
Yep.
And then you've already got the skills to be at the level that you're at, whether you're a boss, a worker, where you're at, a professional, ball player, whatnot. You already have the skills to
Right.
get there, but let's just stay neutral
Yeah.
because, you know, you can't think positive, all the time. I mean, you can think positive, but positive things aren't always going to happen to you. But I'll guarantee you, you think negative, negative will happen to you. I did an experience on experiment on myself where I just did negative stuff for 12 days.
Okay.
Dude, I wanted to crawl in a hole
Yep.
and die.
Wow.
Bro, it was the worst 12 days that I've ever had in my life. I watched news channels
Mm-hmm.
trying to stress test myself. And it was the worst thing, but it's the best experience I ever did because it really brought me back to neutral and allows me to help bring my clients to neutral as well.
Yeah. And I love how you ended. We can dive into that a little bit more, is just the negative influences out there
Mhm.
from the universe and news, for example, social media,
Yeah.
emails, texts. You have all these external influences
Yeah.
asking for your time, asking for your attention. And quite honestly, when you in news and social, it's poisoning your brain. And my wife always, tells me, you at least need to know what's going on in the
Yeah.
world. And I'm like, no, I don't. I go, you can tell me, I'm just not watching the news. I just don't do it. And there's kind of two sides to that equation. One is putting up blinders or just not being exposed to it.
Right.
The other is, we live in the greatest time in the history of the world from a tech
Absolutely.
perspective.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
can find your podcast everywhere, my podcast, YouTubes of Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, all these people, and you can just listen to them all day long. I mean, I'm listening to it in the shower. I'm listening to it as I'm cooking breakfast, because it just, and people wonder, like, how Fergie, how do you have this positivity? Jeff, how do you have this? I feed that positive dog
Daily,
every darn day. There
Yeah,
isn't
man.
a day where I'm not.
Yeah.
So I just loved how you said, hey, going down that 12-day negative
Yeah.
journey, but that's how so many people live. And it's incredible to me.
It's funny you said that too, man, because the best investment I've made probably in the past 2 years is getting YouTube Premium, because they have motivational stuff. They have stuff that you can just play in the background. It's $12 a month, no
Yep.
commercials, and it just rolls, bro.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. That's the because I have all my clients. I'm like, listen, dude, you have to get this. And I send them 50 videos,
Right.
and say, hey, play this in the morning. Just have it on the background.
Yep.
Because that subconscious mind is just saying, oh, feed me, like you just said.
Yeah.
Feed me, feed me, feed me while I'm going through my morning. I have my own morning hour of power, bro.
Yep. Yep. No, I love it. I love those pieces. And I it's so powerful. It's such a hidden edge, right? Is just
Right.
eliminating the negativity. You would
Right.
be you don't have to have a positive bone in your body.
Nope.
You eliminate that being exposed to that negativity, and you start listening to positive, all of a sudden your life will profoundly change,
Bro,
man.
you said it. I mean, people, like, you'll see champions are made here. Bro, we are born champions.
Yep.
Dude, when you're 4 years old, a 4-year-old smiles an average of 400 times a day.
Yep.
As adults, 14 times a day.
Right.
So you can remake yourself into a champion by what you're saying, put that positive mindset together, and you can do it not just saying, okay, I got to read this. No, you just play, have stuff, let the subconscious mind really do its work, man. Because again, the subconscious mind's neutral.
Yep.
Subconscious mind's not thinking in the future at all. It already knows what's going on in the past, right? And then, get a dog and watch the dog, dude. The dog don't care what happened yesterday, doesn't care what's happening 20 minutes from now. That dude is there with you now.
Yep. Yep. So true. I loved it. Great place to end. Where can people find you if they want to look you up?
You know what? Call us directly, man. 561-440-3830. Our motto here at Time to Shine today is we don't want to have anyone to feel like they have no one. I'm blessed with the podcast. We had someone that called in to my coaching company that listened to the show and wanted to end his life, man. And luckily I had interviewed 3 suicide counselors, and the man's still breathing air. So, that's what we're about, man, is making our people shine. Hence the company name. But yeah, you find us, you call us at that number, or just go to timetoshinetoday.com, and we'll be happy to help you. I mean, I had this awesome interview on episode 341 with Wick. So make sure you tune into that one as well.
There you go. Love it, my brother. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Appreciate you, Wick. More than blessed. And I can't wait to collaborate with you, brother.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Create a legendary day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to your Hidden Edge podcast. You are now part of the movement, part of a tribe who's on a mission to uncover their hidden edge. We're stronger together, so please share this. Show up with one person in your network that you want to help. Together, we can empower others, and connected, we can make a dent in the universe.